Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight on the program, we're joined by one of Nigeria's most vocal activists and the 2023 presidential contender and candidate, Omoyele Sowore, publisher, media entrepreneur and national advocate. Never one to mince words, Sowore delivers a scathing critique of Nigeria's political establishment from the ruling APC to the opposition side of the argument, whether PDP or the coalition, accusing both sides of recycling failures and betraying the Nigerian people. He also dismisses the so-called coalition movement as hollow, elite-driven project, lacking credibility and grassroots connection. From politics and the realignments we're witnessing to human rights issues, Sowore will help us tonight make sense of a nation at a crossroad. He joins us virtually live from Abuja. Omoyele Sowore, good evening and thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics. Good to have you tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Let's start this way. I mean, obviously, some of your opinions are quite known, tracking your political antecedents and everything. Most recently, the Tinubu administration, through a statement from one of his spokesmen, alluded to how the developments with the coalition is akin to a plan to overthrow the Tinubu administration. I mean, Nigerians have been inundated about the conversation of 2027. Help us understand your take on all of these political developments and what you make of them.
Well, I can't speak for the Tinubu regime. I think there's something wrong with how they perceive democracy. If they feel that people deciding that they no longer want the government of Tinubu and they want to take over government through their own internal or external realignments, that is not a crime. That's democracy. In fact, it is a sign that somehow the democratic process is still alive, even though it is alien in so many ways. So, involved in our duty to ensure that the Nigerian public is made aware of the antecedents, is made aware of what this is all about. So, my condemnation, as you earlier stated, of these several platforms also extends to the ruling party, the APC. So, I'm not saying that the ADC people are bad because the APC is good. No, because a lot of people might mischievously misconceive my position. No, I am as opposed to the APC as I am opposed to the coalition of persons, particularly those of them who have been in government in the past. People who had opportunity as governors, lawmakers, as advisors to government who did nothing to change the objective condition of Nigerian people.
Right. I like to think that you're a realist, and most Nigerians would say that in the real sense of it, there are only two realistic options in 2027. It's either the APC or the other side, whether it's PDP or the coalition. It's APC versus the other side. What is your take on those who say that people who are sitting on the fence or who are dismissing both sides are not being realistic about what is definitely going to happen, what is inevitable?
No, nobody should say that anything is inevitable. I have been at least politically aware for some 30 years now in Nigeria. And I've seen Nigeria gone through so many inevitables. Things were told can never change. Somebody said Babangida was going to succeed himself no matter whether Nigerians liked it or not. He left unceremoniously. Some people were already asking Abacha to become the candidate of 5 political parties. Unthinkable, right? He left unceremoniously. Some people told us before that there's no way Obasanjo wasn't going to make third term. He left unceremoniously. So you had the situation where people had said that Yaradua was going to come back from illness. He left unceremoniously. People swore in this country that Jonathan will make a second term, that there's no president of Nigeria that will ever lose a second time. He has the army, the police. He left unceremoniously. So anybody that is making those very bland, outrageous statements, I just saying it because that's what they do anyways. With the game, for me, is for Nigerians to understand that there are several options, and the two options that they are faced with are not an option at all. They're not a good option, and we are here to let people know that there's enough time to change course. So it can't be that the only two options you have are these terrible, terrible political operators in the country who have shown with contempt that they're contempt for the Nigerian people in their various capacities before now. So some of them have been around since I was in secondary school or primary school. I think people like David Mack. I heard about David Mack in a quiz that we're doing in secondary school, or I think second, yeah. That was the first time I heard about David Mack. I think it was a governor of a state. Was it not Niger State in those days, if I'm correct, when he was a military guy? So that was I was in secondary school and I heard. So how could you tell me that after this many years, 40 years, that I don't have any option other than a David Mack? Does that make sense? Of course it doesn't.
Right. As an American citizen, I suppose, this is not necessarily unfamiliar territory, right? You look at the Congress, there are septuagenarians, octogenarians there, to say the least. But I digress. Where is the real alternative?
Well, let me correct. I'm not an American citizen. I lived in the U.S., but I'm not an American. I'm a Nigerian citizen. I never changed my citizenship, so that people who are listening to you will not walk away with that wrong impression.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for that correction. And to the question I was about to pose, where is the alternative going to emerge from? If it's not APC, if it's not PDP, if it's not the coalition, where's the realistic alternative going to emerge from?
So I've always done a very basic arithmetic for Nigerians, or maybe you want to call it mathematics, and just look at number of registered voters. And for me, people who are registered to vote are people who are politically matured and aware of making, decisions and choices that could help them elect leaders. Who only voted in last election. I don't think there was more than that. I don't even think that was up to that. But there are 83 million registered voters. So if you deduct 23, you still have 60 million people to play with. So how can we say that we don't know where the next alternative will come from? Of course, this is not an alternative. It's a change of choice. And in that pool could come another mass movement, great voters, and people who can take very well-informed decisions that will have nothing to do with these characters that I'm always talking about. I'm not one of the people who is stuck with these old septuagenarians or octogenarians or nonagenarians we have in our political system. I'm not stuck with them. So my options are, I'm full option. I'm here to say, look, we can change it. And I believe that we can do the unthinkable and the unbelievable this time around, which is for them to wake up one day and discover that they've been drained out of the swamp that they're used to.
Right. And there are many Nigerians who, listening to you right now, would say saints no longer walk the earth right now. So the kind of clean, idealistic policy or politics that you're advocating for does not exist anywhere in the world. So you're going to have to deal with the people that are quote unquote dirty to get the job done.
That might be your position, but I know that Nigerians are looking for a better country. There's no Nigerian that I have met in the last 2 years, for instance. I don't want to mention before, so that you said that no longer count. That is willing to continue to live in poverty, to live in insecurity, to live with a high rate of goods and services. There's no one that is willing to continue in unemployment or low wages. No one I met wants to keep living in a country without hospitals, without schools for their children, without opportunity. I don't know anybody, so I don't see how people in their large numbers who are living below $1 per day, we're talking about almost 100 million people now officially, would say to you as a reporter that they are happy with this bad marriage into which they were forced because they didn't even vote for these guys are in power now. They impose themselves on Nigerian people. So this is not idealism. This is the reality actually is what we're talking about now. Is a very terrible condition in which people have found themselves, conditions of living that they can no longer cope with. That is what people are living with. Nobody wants to continue to live like that. I don't know anybody who wants to continue to live in those conditions that you said is realistic. If it's realistic, that might be realistic to you, but the realistic thing is that everybody wants to get out of this situation.
Have you been approached by the coalition, or was that window never opened in the first place?
No, they don't invite me to things that are happening like that. I think it's a question of the content of your character. If you grow up with friends, you know that if you are of a certain character, your friends will not ask you to come and do things. If, for example, your friends know you don't smoke, they won't ask you to come and smoke. If they know you don't drink, they won't invite you to a place where they are drinking. And if they know you won't partake in crime, they will likely leave you out because they know that it's just not you. So I was never invited to these meetings that they were doing because they know that you can't even invite me to it. Even my closest friend in the coalition, he never told me he was joining the coalition, DG, who eventually wrote a public letter, couldn't have invited me. The only way he could reach me was to write on his Facebook page or publicly that I should join the coalition, even though we're like 3 minutes apart from each other almost daily, or one telephone call away, because they know that you can't tell me that to be part of these people.
And are you still friends, by the way? Just to be clear.
Well, I'm someone who's developing democratic principles and purpose. And if you prove that a choice that is not exactly uh, in consonance with what I believe, it doesn't make us enemies. It's a right. So I'll give you an example. I have younger brothers, my blood brothers in my family house. We have PDP blood brothers and APC blood brothers. And I'm a member of I'm AAC. You get my point. So and we still when we come to family meetings, we just agree that we are there as a family, not as political entities or non-entities. So I totally believe in freedom of choice. I could never begrudge someone because they take a different political position in a situation like this. So it's a sign of maturity that we're still friends. I still met DG, I think 3 days ago. We went together to one of these law school call to bar ceremonies in Abuja. So we were there together. So he knows that he can't tell me to join those those coalitions. But that doesn't mean he's also still my lawyer, by the way. So he's one of my legal attorneys representing me in several cases in the country.
And are you open-minded at all about working with others to deliver the Nigeria of your dreams?
Oh yes, I am. I'm actually working with a lot of people to deliver, and it's only that my own work is not the very selfish type of work. I, for instance, dedicate my entire work hours to getting people out of detention. You know, I'm helping people to get over political problems, police problems, and media work. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of calls to get people out of trouble, to help them to have conversations. I hold meetings with like-minded people. That's what I do all day long, but not with people who have closed their minds on progress. So I'm open-minded to people who are progressive, who believe in shared prosperity and peace for our nation. But I cannot work with people who have closed their mind to those dynamic positions that I've taken my entire life.
So what do you say to young Nigerians like you, younger than you, who are optimistic and hopeful for a better future, who are putting their eggs in one of two baskets, whether with the APC or with the coalition, who 100% actually believe that they're going to deliver the kind of Nigeria that they anticipate for the future? What is your message to them?
I don't meet those ones a lot. If you look at even what we see from things that are going on in those coalitions, you don't see a lot of young people yet, or at least in the high level meetings. You see the young people when there's noise to be made, like in Gombe. They'll recruit, they make t shirts, you'll give hats to young people because that's what they're used for. I've always discussed and spoken eloquently, or in whichever way you want to describe it, about ambition. A lot of Nigerian youth have to also upgrade their ambitions. A lot of them are still stuck with the ambition of becoming special advisors, special alternatives to people in government. But other places, young people are very ambitious. They want leadership. And that was where Nigeria was coming from. Nigeria used to be governed by young people. But over time, those dynamic and youthful ideas just walked away. And now we are now in the geriatric era where we're only managed by old people who demand total obedience and allegiance from young people and who get young people to act against their own interests. So, but when you look at the tables where they make these decisions, I mean, look at the leaders of the parties on both sides. The chairman of APC is like 80 years old. The chairman of ADC is 80 something year old. These guys are in their 70s. But when it is time to look for people to carry the cordials, carry ballot boxes, insult people on Facebook and social media in general, that's where they get the young people to come in, not when it's time to take decisions. What I'm saying in essence is that we don't have elders, old people, who are selfless enough to say, look, I want to plant a tree, that adage, that the younger generations can sit under when it's sunny in the future, even when I'm not there. You don't have them. They want to have everything to themselves. They want to be president, they want to be bankers, they want to own everything, and they want to own and die with everything. That is what the selfish shedders in Nigeria are all about. And when you see young people around them, it's because they want to use them and dump them whenever they want.
So you would put the likes of Peter Obi, Nasir El-Rufai, Datti Ahmed, and the other seemingly younger political figures in the coalition in the same basket as Atiku Abubakar, David Mark, Rotimi Amechi. You put all of them in the same basket. You believe they share the same political antecedents?
Of course. If you look at El-Rufai, for instance, El-Rufai has been in office since 1999. I even think 1998, when Abu Salami came. He was a consultant to Abu Salami. When Obasanjo came, he became the BP chairman. He was FCT minister for several years. He was governor for 8 years in Kaduna State. You look at Peter Obi, was governor for 8 years in Anambra State. David Mark was governor as a military guy in Niger State. He was in charge of communication at the time in this country. Make sure people didn't have telephones when everybody was getting it for free. He was Senate president for almost 3 terms, which is about 12 years, I believe. So Atiku was governor of Adamawa State. He was vice president for 8 years. So these guys are people who have no ideas. So as you know, I will repeat here again, my problem is not their age, it's the age of their ideas. I think the ideas are really old ideas because they haven't taken this country anywhere near prosperity and progress like other nations have had. There are people who can swear by Ghana to you that Ghana is more developed than Nigeria. And if you get to Ghana, you'll believe them because Ghana is making progress every day. Nigeria is retrogressing every day. And these are the people who made it possible for Nigeria now to experience progress. So they are old in that regard because of the ideas. They are old in terms of their operating system. The operating system is Windows 95.
Right. Some would say that's a bit harsh, but of course, your words. We had
Yeah.
Professor Pat Otomi, the convener of the Big Tent Shadow Cabinet or Government, on the program just yesterday, and he says if the coalition makes transition from the old guard to the new part of their agenda, they would perhaps see a lot of success in 2027 with new political figures emerging from the coalition instead of the same old names. Do you think there's still room for the coalition to turn a corner, to convince a Sowore to join the ranks if those same figures that you do not approve of are guaranteed to only support and not be on the ballot?
I don't need to second guess it, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I can swear by anything that there's nobody mentioned by you who is willing to let the young people thrive. If they were to going to, if they were going to do that, they would have just stayed back and asked the young people. They would have been the referees, who would say, look, young people come together, let's pay for the hall where you meet. Are you getting my point? Let's give you some advice that we know of, but it's up to you to come up with the best strategies to develop your country. You see, part of the problem these guys don't want to retire is because they didn't create a country that they could retire in. Typically, when people reach the age of 65, they're supposed to retire. There's a reason why there's a retirement age, even in the civil service. And then you go and help take care of your kids, your grandchildren, you travel around the world, you do things you've never done before. But in their own case, they created a country from which they can never retire because they didn't create a country into which they could retire. There's nothing. So these guys, in all honesty, you might look at it and say, well, maybe they're ambitious. It's not an ambition. It's lack of faith and desperation that if they don't do what they're doing now, they will have nothing to live on. Because most of them made money, but they lived extravagant lives. They bought houses. Let me give you an example. There was a time David Mack lost £6 million in a divorce proceeding in the UK to his wife. The wife's name is Victoria. So I imagine that if he has £6 million in his account, maybe he'll probably want to settle back and just enjoy life, because this is no life. Every day you have to go to meetings. Most of the time they go to these meetings, they fall asleep. They can barely discuss much, anyways. But they just keep hustling. They are actually the real hustlers, whereas we call young people who are running around hustlers. They are the ones hustling for life because honestly, they didn't create a country in which they could retire. And don't let anybody bring up the conversation about, other countries have old people running them, especially the US and all that. Yes, the US might have an old president, but the US doesn't have everybody old. Are you getting my point? Running the country, you still find some young president, and the US is so dynamic, right? There was a time there was a 47-year-old guy, Obama. I think Obama was less than 47. Clinton was 47. JF Kennedy was 39 when he became president of the country. So, and you look at the system, you look at governors in the US, a lot of young governors, there are a lot of young public administrators. But here, all the old people are just like huddling together. Even when it is time to go to their grave, they're still looking for position. Look at last week, we were told that the former governor of Kano, an APC chairman, was sick and he had retired. By this week, he has gone to take up the position of chairman of FAN, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. And what does he want to do? What does he want in life again? Is it because I think they're so insecure in their past that they feel like if they're not in control of the country, life will be miserable. So they keep hanging on to straws. That's the sad part. But it's up to the young people, because you asked about them. It's up to the young people to also have a decision, honestly, because young people also need honest assessment. A lot of young people in Nigeria are not that conscious. I have to admit to that. I'm not insulting them, but the consciousness level is low in Nigeria. That is why the ambitions are also very limited. And somebody you see who has a PhD is willing to be a social media influencer for a guy who didn't go to school. And you look at the trajectory like that. People who are governors, people who are in political positions. Whenever they get there, they may not know anything, but they're going to hire the most experienced, the most educated Nigerians to go and do their dirty job. And those ones never ask, why is it not me that's governor? Why should I be supporting a governor who doesn't even have a certificate? So I'm not saying that certificates, academic degrees are the only things that qualify people to be leaders. A lot of people with academic degrees are terrible in Nigeria as well. So we've seen it all. But I'm just giving you an idea that that level of consciousness needs to rise among young people, and they need to decide once and for all that it is time to change course.
Right, all right. Interesting conversation. Just on a final point, just to be clear again, if I can get a yes or no, you're not politically intolerant of people who support the coalition or the APC or any other political movement that you disagree with?
Oh no, I'm very tolerant. I think it is me that they don't tolerate. So they can't tolerate me. That's why they keep throwing me into jail. That's why they seize my passport at the slightest provocation.
Right.
I think if there's anybody who is tolerant of everybody, it would be me. And if there are people who are intolerant, it will be those people we're talking about, because they come after me a lot.
All right. Omoyele Sowore, thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics. Appreciate the analysis. Hope to speak to you soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.